Greetings from Brussels. I'm Ante Babić and I would like to talk to you today about greening Europe. European Union and European Commission as its operational body have thought about how to make things more green and more sustainable since a couple of years ago. We had in 2009 we had the Lisbon Treaty, where in its core we had Lisbon Agenda, which is a sustainable development paradigm, which we try to instill in all the directives and all the working of European Commission and European Union. The issue is, of course, how to be sustainable when you have interlinked nations, interlinked policies of all the globe. So the only true level where you can be truly sustainable is the world, because as you know, if you are doing sustainable things and your neighbor doesn't, then there are spillovers from your neighbor through water, through air, through through livestock, through woods, and all the connections that are there. That's why we are working hard to do many things on international front. One of those efforts was a Paris Agreement in 2016, which we hosted as European Union in Paris, where we achieved with a lot of lobbying that this Paris Agreement is the one obligatory agreement for all the nations except now United States, which is out and is going to be back, for actions in the front of climate and greening with timetables up to 2050, year 2050, where we are obliging all the countries to do much more in terms of climate. In 2019, with the arrival of new Commission led by Mrs. von der Leyen, European Commission and European Union inaugurated European Green Deal as a step further in from Lisbon Agenda, from sustainability toward more green. And the final goal of European Green Deal is to make European continent and all its territories, including Greenland, Azores, and ocean that is Atlantic Ocean, and parts of Pacific Ocean that are under European Union member states jurisdiction, climate neutral, which will be a great achievement. By achieving this goal of being climate neutral by 2050, European Union and all its territories under its jurisdiction will boast ideal goal of Paris Agreement that we prevent the global warming, climate change in terms of global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius by year 2050. We are talking about the reduction of CO2 and all the other greenhouse gases, methane, PFC, HFC, nitrogen oxide, and the particles that are polluting. And looking at the numbers, the European Union has emitted 4.6 thousand megatons in 1990, which is the reference year, and in 2018-2019 we reduced it by 25% to 3.5 thousand megatons. The goal by 2050 is to be climate neutral. There is a sink in meadows, forests, and all the in the nature that we do have. And this sink is 260 to 300 megatons of CO2. So we are pretty much looking at reducing these emissions in European Union by 4,200 megatons of CO2 equivalent. And that will, if we look at the major emitters, the biggest emitter of GHG or greenhouse gases is energy. And that is why I'm talking to you today, because I'm working in that department, in the Department of Energy of the European Commission. 83% of all the emissions come from energy. And there's a big room there to track that down, switching to renewables, improving energy efficiency, and the like. Next polluter, next emitter is, by the ranking is agriculture, about 11.3%. Then about 10% it's industrial processes, and waste management only 3.3%. The sink, the sink of CO2, so the usage of CO2 by plants in meadows, marshes, and woods in European Union is about 7.5%. In comparison, if we are talking about Croatia, Croatia has only 25 megatons of had only 25 megatons of CO2 in 1990, which Croatia was able to reduce to 19, and it's this the breakdown is a little bit different. The energy in Croatia is guilty of 90% of emission of CO2. Then we have agriculture of almost 15%. Then it's industrial processes of 14%, and waste management 11%. With sink, which is relatively big in Croatia, it's 27%. So we can see that in Croatia the energy and industrial processes and all of those processes are relatively higher emitters than in European Union. So there's a way to go and to improve the situation in Croatia relatively to the average of Europe. So major major driving actions of the European Green Deal are the climate target plan, which we enacted end of last year, which increases the ambition in the medium term perspective. So by 2030, as we already said, we managed to reduce the CO2 or GHG emissions by 25%. By 2030, in 1 decade, so it's a shorter time, European Union is pledged itself to reduce even further to 55% of the CO2 levels that were there in 1990. By focusing on building renovation, the Renovation Wave, by focusing on renewables and deployment of renewable energy, by looking on sustainability, there's a taxonomy, we'll talk about that. By energy efficiency, the Renovation Wave, which is the renovation of buildings that will bring much more of the energy efficiency in buildings, through following policy initiatives. Of course, there's energy system integration strategy, which tends to combine industrial processes. As we saw, they are smaller emitter, but also combined with energy, there's a huge effect there. energy system integration strategy, also combining energy and transport, which are also a nexus of emissions. Hydrogen strategy, building new fuels for the transport system, but also hydrogen is our way of thinking how to store energy beyond the batteries, as hydrogen is one of the medium that can store energy and recover energy when it's needed. There's also methane strategy and offshore renewable strategy that are already in the pipeline. While we were working out the details of European Green Deal, Corona pandemic struck the world, and we were forced to think about the emergency plan, how to toggle that, and how to bring recovery in the European economy. So on top of the regular workings, and the European Green Deal was going to be a part of regular workings, the regular multi-annual financial framework, we came up with the Next Generation EU, 750 billion program that in its core had idea of bringing recovery in a European Union economy and resilience, but not looking at recovering what was there before, but using this opportunity to make industries, make processes, make jobs more green and more sustainable, and using recovery to make more resilience and bring in and switch the European economy into something that is more greener, more energy efficient, more sustainable. And in core of Next Generation EU, which is, as I told, 750 billion euros, there is a recovery and resilience facility of 673 billion euros, of which main targeting has to be to 30% has to go to climate. And to do that, because it is different to calculate through shares of energy and industry and stuff like that, 37% of all the money from RRF, or Resilience and Recovery Facility, has to go directly to climate investment, and the rest, 63%, need to be under the clause of do not significant harm to climate. So I'm not saying that the 100% has to go to climate, but 37% goes directly to climate, but the other 63% have to be investments that are not going to do significant harm, are not going to worsen the situation in the climate. So that is on the top of a regular activity. This is a shorter program. It's going to last until 2026. And it has some flagships. One of it is Power Up, the quicker and more massively deployed renewables. The Renovation Wave, the major target of which is renovation of buildings, which are the core of increasing efficiency, because the major part of inefficiency of energy is in the buildings. And the hydrogen and energy systems integration. So each and every member state would make its recovery and resilience program that will tap into the recovery and resilience facility to the allocations that were made. For instance, for Croatia, it's 21 billion, but it has to make sure, we have to make sure, and we are going to receive those plans in drafts, and we're going to, as European Commission, we're going to see if those plans honor the criteria. So 37% need to go directly to climate issues, and the rest, 63%, have to be not obstructing the climate. So they have to do not significant harm to climate. So they are still in drafts. They are coming in drafts. So some thoughts of how to streamline the recovery and resilience plans I think, necessary, and there needs to be imagination and new thinking, because this is a new phenomenon, this is the new instrument. So if we are talking Croatia as one example, if we are talking about Croatia, there are issues probably which will be taken very well care of, like renovation of buildings. That is something that is understandable. But also there are some ideas that might help in shaping the final version of the draft, like nuclear power. As we all know, Croatia is sharing the nuclear plant of Krško with Slovenia, and nuclear power is something that is seen as a good transitional way how to achieve the climate neutrality, because nuclear doesn't emit CO2, doesn't emit any GHGs, and after Fukushima, European Union has increased the security in all the facilities, in all nuclear facilities in Europe. So there is a very, very, very low chance of being at risk in having nuclear there. So I think that will help investment in nuclear in Europe, especially as gas is wind out after the coal, and we are trying to wind down all the fossil fuels there. We will be especially looking in European Commission how the deployment of green and renewable energy is going to be envisaged in those resilience and recovery plans. There must be some studies of how to tackle all the obstacles for faster deployment of green and renewable energy, especially solars and wind energy. Taking the example of Croatia, it's very fascinating that the wind energy is deployed only in some parts of on the coast, where the wind is unstable. Sometimes it's too strong, and sometimes it doesn't blow at all. Where in the continent there is data that the wind blows mostly all the time, and especially for the solar, there's a question why it didn't take up as it should, especially on the coast where you have greater installation and you have also flat roofs on the forefront of the uptake of solar. There can be touristic companies which have a lot of flat roofs. In terms of transport, I think there is also a big way to make more efficiency, and there's a lot of energy wasted in transport, and electrification of railways, and thinking about public transport instead of pushing for use of personal vehicles that use fossil fuels. That is something that can be dealt with in recovery and resilience facility. Thinking about increasing taxes, excises on fuels to curb the consumption of fossil fuels. That is something also that is needed. For countries that are depending on tourism, tourism also can bring in pollution and increasing waste. So looking at the waste management and wastewater management on the coast where most of the tourism is happening. That is something to think of in Croatia. Waste to energy, ways how to combine the heating and cooling, district heating and district cooling, of switching from mazut and gas to renewables, even combining the waste incineration or waste management to heat and cool. That is something that is also welcome. And there is also, we talked about the hydrogen and initiative and electrolyzers. I think there are some capacities when we're talking, for instance, in Croatia, that were used to produce industrial processes that can be turned into electrolyzers for hydrogen. One of the examples is aluminium. Croatia had the TLM combinate, and there are electrolyzers there. Maybe there are ways to turn that into electrolyzers for hydrogen. We'll see how it goes. By saying that, I would like to come to the finish of my expose. I think there's much that you can help also with in the turning this European Union, this Europe, into green. One way is of course, this is the new way that we are thinking. This is the new course that we are taking, and in new ways of thinking and new ideas, they need to have new people to bring those out and to make new ideas and to bring new projects that will bring this out. And this is where I see all of you, and you can help with ideas and projects and activism. If you see that something is not going into direction of sustainable and green, then help shape it. And of course, there's as a trained economist, I should always tell you, you can have the final saying is, and that is what is overlooked most of the times, is you can do that. You can help shape things in direction of green and sustainable by your wallet, because that's the most powerful thing. You can choose if you're going to support green industries, sustainable industries, or byproducts that are not produced with green technologies, that are not produced on a sustainable way. So finally, the choice is yours. We have made all these policies with impact assessments that use models and that use projections. And in those projections, we are counting on the behavior that will go in the way of green and sustainable, because we all love our planet. There's only one planet, and there's only one Europe, and we don't need to go anywhere else. So to make it greener, to see that the climate change is not going to bring the water levels and make difficult life on the coast, and make severe droughts and severe floods and everything else. We can do that by choosing to finance or buy the products that are green and sustainable, and processes that are green and sustainable, and those will survive. And those that are based on fossil fuels and not sustainable, if we don't buy them, they won't survive. So this is the choice that we can make. Thank you very much, and I hope my expose is not going to bore you, and to at least to inspire you to help us in transition to green and sustainable. Thank you very much.